Thank you for tuning into this week's 3-2-1. That's 3 comments on the Parsha in 2 minutes with 1 insight. This week we get the story, the binding of Isaac. It's huge. Abraham is told, take your son, your only son, the one you love, Isaac, to a place that I will show you. And Abraham and Isaac get up early in the morning, and they slept for 3 days. They walk until they make it to Mount Moriah, the place that would become the Holy of Holies, the place where we now have the Western Wall. They walk up the mountain. Isaac carries the very supplies for the altar he will be offered upon. They make it to the top. Isaac is tied down. Abraham holds up the knife, and only at that moment does the angel of God say, no, God does not want you to sacrifice your child. Look to the side. And there was a ram caught in the thicket, the ram whose horn becomes the shofar, the symbol we know so well. Over time, I've had an evolving understanding of how to hold on to this impossible story, to imagine God saying, take your son, your only son, the one you love, and sacrifice him unto me. Unbelievable, impossible. But as a young person, I understood this as a story about faith. Abraham believes and does what God says without question, without hesitation, and that's what leads to ultimately finding the ram and finding another way. God takes care of Abraham precisely because he believes. As he got a little bit older, and indeed, as I looked upon the prospect of becoming a father, I read the story a little differently. In fact, 1 week after Liba was born, I gave a sermon in which I said that the Torah tells us Abraham was tested, and I think Abraham failed. Why did it take 3 days to journey there? God wanted Abraham to argue and say no, just like he did for Sodom and Gomorrah. When they get to the top of the mountain, we learn that Abraham and Isaac never have a relationship after this. And finally, Abraham doesn't continue on as the patriarch. This is the moment where he passes off leadership to Isaac. So perhaps what's really going on is Abraham fails his test. And then I learned from scholarship a different understanding of how this fits into the ancient world. You see, our ancestors would have understood that if you have a real serious prayer, the one that matters a lot, the only way to get God's attention would be through child sacrifice, to offer your child upon an altar. That's the way it worked then. So for them, this story is essential. They need the first Jew, the one who is at the center of it all, to be told to sacrifice his child. That would have made sense. What the change was is that God said, no, I don't want you to sacrifice your children. What's going on here is a cosmic shift in the way religion existed in the ancient world, and said, we no longer sacrifice children. That's what this story was about. And in the last 3 weeks, I've begun to understand it again. There is a truth that it's hard to hold on to and live with, that often I don't think about, which is sometimes our kids don't make it. Sometimes that's what happens. And in the last 3 weeks, we've seen a lot of death. And I think about those soldiers on the front line, those 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they're children, they're kids, who signed up, who walked up their own mountain, not being sure 1,000% that they would be able to come down. It's not the same, of course. But the idea that the state of Israel and its safety, that the contract, the social contract of Israel, what that means is every single one of our children will stand up and join those defense forces, is perhaps rooted in this moment of God telling Abraham. It is a challenge to each of us and a reminder, especially those of us in America who are not in the same exact situation, to stand up for Israel in every way we can, to put it at the center of our hearts and souls, of course, to offer our prayers, to join together for rallies and vigils, to send our money and resources, to spread awareness, and if you're up for it, think about signing up exactly now for our trip to Israel in May. Of course, we have all the protections that we can get our money back if it doesn't make sense, and we won't go if it's not safe by May to go. But the statement that we believe right now, that even though Israel is in such peril that there will be a tomorrow, and we will sign on the bottom line and say, we're going, is a statement of faith and support, a statement of standing with Israel. The link is below this video. I hope you'll join me. This Shabbat, as we enter this most difficult story, I wish us the strength to think about when we choose to sacrifice, to give up our own comfort, our own choices, our own anything, to stand up for what matters more, and to ask ourselves, how are we standing with Israel? Shabbat Shalom.